When a young waitress named Emily walked into her shift at the upscale Manhattan bistro, she had no idea her life was about to change forever. It was just another busy Friday night, plates clattering, glasses clinking, and the low hum of conversation filling the air. Emily, a 24-year-old aspiring artist, had been working double shifts to save up for her first solo art exhibition. She was tired, but she couldn't afford to slow down. Every tip mattered. As she wiped down a table near the window, her manager, Mark, rushed over, his face flushed with excitement. "Emily, table 12. VIP. Don't mess this up, okay?" he said, his voice a mix of urgency and awe. She glanced toward the table and froze. Sitting there, surrounded by a small entourage, was Barron Trump. The youngest son of the former president was unmistakable, tall, poised, and quietly commanding attention without even trying. Emily's heart raced. She had waited on celebrities before, but this felt different. The air around the table seemed charged, as if something significant was about to happen. She took a deep breath, smoothed her apron, and approached the table with her best professional smile. "Good evening. Welcome to Bistro Lumiere. My name is Emily, and I'll be taking care of you tonight," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. Barron looked up and gave her a polite nod. "Thank you," he replied, his tone calm and measured. The order was straightforward: steak, medium rare, a side of truffle fries, and a sparkling water. But as Emily turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of Barron's expression. There was something in his eyes, a quiet sadness, a weight that seemed out of place on someone so young. She shook it off, chalking it up to her imagination, and hurried to put in the order. The night wore on, and Emily kept stealing glances at table 12. Barron and his group were engrossed in conversation, their voices low and serious. She couldn't help but wonder what they were discussing: politics, family, or something deeper. Every time she refilled their water glasses or cleared a plate, she felt a strange pull, as if there was more to this encounter than met the eye. As the meal wound down, Emily's manager pulled her aside. "They're about to leave. Make sure everything's perfect," he instructed. She nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared the check. When she placed it on the table, Barron looked up at her and smiled, a genuine warm smile that caught her off guard. "Thank you for your excellent service," he said, his voice soft but sincere. Emily felt a lump form in her throat. "It was my pleasure," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She watched as Barron signed the check and handed it back to her. But as she turned to walk away, something made her pause. The check felt heavier than it should have. She glanced down and froze. Scribbled on the back of the receipt was a note in neat, elegant handwriting. "Thank you for your kindness tonight. You have a light that the world needs. Don't give up on your dreams. B." Emily's eyes welled up with tears. How did he know? How could he possibly know about her struggles, her dreams, her fears? She looked up, but Barron and his group were already walking out the door. She wanted to run after him, to thank him, to ask him how he knew. But all she could do was stand there, clutching the check like it was a lifeline. The next few days were a blur. Emily couldn't stop thinking about the note. It wasn't just the words. It was the way they seemed to speak directly to her soul. She had been on the verge of giving up, of packing away her paints and accepting that her dreams were just that, dreams. But now, she felt a spark of hope she hadn't felt in years. She tried to go about her life as usual, but the encounter lingered in her mind like a haunting melody. She found herself sketching Barron's face during her breaks, trying to capture the quiet intensity in his eyes. Her co-workers noticed the change in her. "You've been smiling a lot more lately," one of them remarked. Emily just nodded, unsure of how to explain what had happened. But as the days turned into weeks, Doubt began to creep in. What if the note didn't mean anything? What if it was just a polite gesture, something Barron did for everyone? The spark of hope flickered, threatening to die out. Emily felt herself slipping back into the familiar darkness of self-doubt. Then, one evening, as she was closing up the restaurant, her manager approached her with an envelope. "This came for you," he said, his expression unreadable. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the elegant handwriting on the front. It was the same as the note on the check. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. She unfolded it and began to read. "Dear Emily, I hope this letter finds you well. I wanted to reach out and thank you again for your kindness that night. I could see the weight you were carrying, and I wanted you to know that you're not alone. Life has a way of testing us, but it's in those moments that we discover our true strength. I believe in you, Emily. Your art has the power to change lives, including your own. Don't let fear or doubt hold you back. The world is waiting for your light. Sincerely, Barron." Emily's tears fell freely now, soaking the paper in her hands. She felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, hope, and something she couldn't quite name. It was as if a door had been opened, and she was finally ready to step through it, with Barron's words echoing in her mind. Emily threw herself into her art with a renewed passion. She spent every spare moment painting, pouring her heart and soul into each brushstroke. The doubts were still there, but they no longer held her back. She had found her purpose, and she wasn't going to let it go. Months later, Emily stood in the middle of her first solo art exhibition, surrounded by her work. The gallery was packed with people, friends, family, strangers, all drawn to the raw emotion and beauty of her paintings. As she looked around, she felt a sense of pride and accomplishment she had never known before. And then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw him. Barron stood quietly at the edge of the room, his eyes scanning the paintings with a thoughtful expression. Emily's heart raced as she made her way over to him. "You came," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Barron smiled. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Your work is incredible, Emily. You've found your light." Tears filled her eyes as she realized the full impact of his words. He had seen something in her that she hadn't been able to see in herself. And now, standing here, surrounded by her art, she finally understood what it meant to believe in herself. As the night wound down, Emily found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. She had faced her fears, embraced her dreams, and discovered a strength she never knew she had. And it all started with a simple note on a check. Emily knew that her life would never be the same. She had found her purpose, her passion, and her voice. And as she looked out at the sea of faces in the gallery, she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for Barron, but for everyone who had believed in her along the way. The world was waiting for her light, and she was ready to shine.